Their videos have been viewed hundreds of millions of times. Their most recent album, Of the Blue Color of the Sky, was released by their own company, Paracadoo. And the rest of this introduction I'm going to be quoting, and it's going to be adapted from Ira Glass. Some of the cool shit they've made lately, a record accompanied only by trombones, Bonorama actually, for those of you who were there last night, a play, an essay in the best-selling collection, Things I've Learned from Women Who've Dumped Me, laser guitars with designer Moritz Waldenmeyer, and a barrage of op-eds in the New York Times and Huffington Post. They've testified before Congress and played in the Senate chambers. They've been commentators on All Things Considered. They've interviewed a member of NSYNC in the bathroom of Radio City Music Hall. They have a project where they walk the streets with fans handing out burritos to the homeless. And they've helped to raise the money to buy the house for a soul legend, Al Carnival Time Johnson, so he could move home to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. So OK Go does a lot, but for our purpose, OK Go is the polymath band who, with only $5 and a camcorder, did what none of the giant record labels could, inventing a new way for a band to connect with fans and changing the way people think about music and the internet. Thank you, Ira Glass, and he'll be joined by Neda Ulaby, a reporter on arts, entertainment, and culture trends for NPR, and also hosts their award-winning Culturetopia podcast. Please give a warm welcome to Damian Kulash and Neda Ulaby.
Hi. No. Just me.
It's just gonna be, should we share it?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear us both?
Can you hear me? All right. Good. We're working. So I'm going to start off by referring to Damian's work writing about net neutrality. He's done that a lot, and most of the writing he's done for the Washington Post and the New York Times has been very big picture policy stuff. But I wanted to start by asking you how you feel net neutrality is tied to the future of music. What does net neutrality have to do, particularly with revenue streams for musicians?
Can I briefly ask, can we actually, it's going to be sort of awkward for us both
This
to try to
one?
lean over.
Good,
Oh, there
okay,
we go. Good. Sorry, what does net neutrality mean to musicians? Is that the question?
Specifically to music.
Specifically, it means the possibility of innovation, such that more interesting things will happen in the future than we make stuff, and giant gatekeepers get to tell us what will be successful and how we get paid.
Do gatekeepers have a future in the emerging models that you're seeing cropping up? You've talked about how gatekeepers did have a purpose in the old model. How do you see them working, if at all, as we move forward?
I think people need filters. I mean, not need, but people rely on filters, and filters and gatekeepers are sort of the same thing, same idea from two different angles. So there certainly will always be middle levels of consumption of art and culture and music and everything we make. But I don't think that we need we need to have a system in which the distributors themselves have all the power.
How do you see gatekeepers working?
Tell you the truth, I don't really know. I mean, I don't have the magic solution all in my head. I think the interesting thing about the position we're in right now is that basically music has existed for millennia. The music industry, or the recording industry, has existed for slightly under a century. And during that time, I think we have come to understand music as recordings of music, and that a song is the recording of a song, and everything else is ancillary material. Even the songwriting itself is something you do to get to the point where you have a CD you can release, and shows are a way you promote your CD, and videos, of course, are an advertisement that your label makes for your CD. But in general, the most abstract we can get is that maybe a band is a brand you are selling, but basically it's recordings. I mean, that's the entire business model. And as everyone knows, obviously, people don't really pay for recordings anymore. So the one thing in the music industry that has completely imploded is the one thing that they had pinned value to. And if you as far as I can tell, most of the discussion around the future of the music industry and the sort of hand-wringing about how, where are we going to find money from, it comes from the basic problem that people want that we want to keep finding a singular source of value, and it would be really convenient if it still was the recording. But from the perspective of people who make stuff and just want to make stuff, if you really sort of like try to get out from underneath that model and just think about making things that would be exciting to make, that you would have fun making, that you could connect people with, and that would sort of produce the emotional and cultural connection that you want out of the things you make, there's no reason why those things have to be recordings only and everything else is support stuff. So I think that the exciting period we are in is figuring out what the new categories are, or if we even need such restrictive categories, and where the gatekeepers had, I think, too much control was sort of in reestablishing that same structure over and over again, such that we believe art to be a very particular sort of distribution form of that art, and that it doesn't need to be the case anymore.
Right. You've helped shake up the distribution model, partly with the music videos that the band is so well known for making. Can you talk a little bit about how you first came up with or stumbled upon the idea for the first video, and whether you had any clue at the time that you were essentially creating a new model with it?
Sure. No, we did not think we were creating a new model. I will try to make this short. The history of us and homemade music videos actually starts with there's a public access TV show in Chicago called Chicago. Does anyone here know Chicago? It's fucking amazing. It is basically Soul Train but anybody can come in and dance. It's public access, so anybody can show up and be the dancers. So people bring their the kids that they're babysitting and their grandmothers and stuff, and it's like this fantastically wonderful show. We were asked to go perform on the show, but they don't have the technology or the resources to actually record performances, so they have local bands come in and mime. And we were, I think we had recorded one song at that point, and certainly didn't have major label interest or any, there was no outward career going. It was just like, we were making some stuff, and we didn't, being the contrarians we were, we didn't want to go lip sync unless we were gonna like swing for the fences. So we rented a bunch of in-sync videos and cheerleading videos and stuff, and we came up with this like completely ludicrous dance routine and performed it on the TV show to the resounding applause of all 16 people who were probably watching. And actually our backing band was Ira and Gretchen Helfrich from the sort of NPR luminaries of Chicago were our backing band, which we thought was funny because no one had ever seen their faces. And so that dance routine was just like sort of this ball of pure joy that was really silly and really fun and strangely aggressive in the right circumstances, because when people are trying to be really cool, especially at rock shows, if you just drop your instruments and break into dance, it's a real watershed where you have to like be happy or get the fuck out. You can't act cool in a rock show when people are doing that. And so for years we ended our show with this dance routine, and that was through a 3 or 4 year period of our first major label album, and we toured for almost 2 straight years on that record, and we had a big, or at least a moderate, major label push on the single, and Capitol Records paid $485,000 for our first video, which I think is that budget that for that 2-day shoot that was wedged for the director between his shoot with Pink and with Will Smith that's more money spent on that video than I think all of the rest of our videos combined, and it did okay at MTV. It was the single got to mid-20s or maybe it was even mid-teens on the alternative rock charts, but we were like solid mid-pack band, but definitely not like the next big thing, and definitely not like get rid of that band. So we're sort of like just big enough to put out another record, and we did. And the label put no resources behind it, and we decided we needed to do a new dance routine for our live show, just because we're going to go out, do another like year-long tour, and it would be such a disappointment not to get to have this wonderful moment in the show. So we came up with a new dance routine with my sister, who is a professional ballroom dancer. Was then. We knew that we couldn't keep on doing this song from the last record, so we came up with this silly routine. Then recorded a home video of us practicing in the backyard, and really did not think of it at all as a rock video, but it was just sort of like this, silly, fun thing we had made that we'd share with our friends, and sent it around to a bunch of friends. This was before YouTube existed, and I don't think we were really thinking at all of like how this would work promotionally, or how this would connect to anybody except just our closest friends. And someone stuck it on a site called iFilm, and a few months later, we noticed it had been downloaded 250,000 times, which was as many records as we had sold up to that point. And we felt like, holy shit, we have saturated the entire internet. Mostly, I know I said I'd make this short, but I'm not making it short. I grew up here. I grew up here in DC, going to shows, almost every day. Ian MacKaye gave me a loan when I was 15 to put out 7 inches, music has always been. I've never been a particularly talented instrumentalist, and music has always been like a sort of social and passionate engagement for me, and I've always sort of been very directly connected to the things that I worshipped and that I was artistically a part of. So being on a major label was, we were strange bedfellows for a major label in the first place, but if you want to tour for a year and you don't have any money of your own, you kind of got to get someone to back you. And we, when this strange, weird thing connected with a giant audience, or what felt like a giant audience, in a really direct way, that wasn't at all mediated by our label, wasn't at all sort of like, didn't require us to fit the thing that we had made into first the square hole of the label, and then through the round hole of the radio industry, and then through the star-shaped hole of MTV, and then like these various competing agendas that require you to essentially make the exact same thing that was just made by some other band. It was just really, really exciting to know that there is somewhere out there's 250,000 people who probably weren't even our fans before this, but are just like nerds. I mean, people who are sitting around watching videos on their screen at work, and that we now have a direct, like we can actually like email those people, and they're like our fans connectedly. So we thought, let's if we can make a video like that by accident, let's make one on purpose. And we called up my sister and said, we need to make another dance, but it can't be the same thing. So we spent like half an hour brainstorming how we could change the parameters of dance. We could do it on stairs or on a hill. We actually discussed doing it on, the stairs that are right along the Potomac as you're going to that big round set of stairs. We're maybe going to dance there, or on a merry-go-round, or on treadmills. And obviously treadmills won, and we made this. We went to my sister's house for 10 days. We didn't tell our label. We didn't really tell our management. They knew we were going to make a video, but if we had told them, like, we're going to dance on treadmills, they would, it'd be a horrible investment to tell your young indie rock band that that's a good thing to do with your time. So we made this video. We at the same time, Capitol had funded a much smaller but still sort of commercial video that didn't get on MTV at all. I don't think there was no radio push for that record whatsoever. And we toured for 18 months before we put out the treadmill video. Back up a step. When we first had this idea, we brought in the backyard dance video that had now been downloaded a couple 100,000 times, and we were like, okay, listen, Capitol, we got this big plan. We're gonna go make like a total hyper awesome version of this. So check out what we've made, and it's been downloaded all these times. And we showed it to the head of digital marketing, and he sat there and watched it intently. And the first words out of his mouth, like literally, this is, I shit you not, an exact quote was, "If this gets out, you're sunk."
Oh.
So we sank ourselves with that, and then
And they're doing just fine.
You know, Capitol is like, it's amazing. I mean, all the mergers have been so good for them. So, I mean, what it is that same gentleman, after the release of the treadmill video, a year later, we were asked if a reporter from USA Today called and said he wanted to do like a big 2-page spread on this like crazy new phenomenon of internet video and what the band is doing, and we were like, okay, well that's the biggest publication in America, so that seems like something maybe you'd do, and the label was like, oh no, that doesn't. I mean, that's just not gonna. I don't think it's gonna flavor it right. You know, because
was it because they were worried about putting music and making it available?
Well, no. I mean, they had already tried to release the video without telling us. They had taken the video and done a big premiere on stupidvideos.com, which we only found out because our guitar tech is a big fan of stupid videos, and was like, hey guys, you're on stupidvideos.com. Like we were supposed to be psyched, and we're like, no. So we had them pull it down, and we later put it on YouTube, sort of in the reverse. I mean, YouTube had sort of just started, and we didn't tell them we were putting it up, and we released it on YouTube, and then there was this huge explosion. VH1 added it like to their highest rotation like the next day, and the VMAs asked us if we'd come perform the thing live on the VMAs, and suddenly our label is like, who had been. I really don't want to just. I mean, it's so easy to be bitchy about labels, but they had tried very hard on the first record. They had not really tried so hard on the second record, but to their credit, they'd paid our tour support bills well, sometimes, and they had been. We were like a surviving rock band, which is there just aren't many of them. Suddenly they turned on the money hose, and it was like, this is like we're all changing the world now. We got it so we get to do the USA Today article as long as that same head of digital marketing is in the room. So they fly him from Los Angeles to New York, and wherever we were on tour, we fly to New York, and we're in a room at a studio where it was a round table. So we were actually at like 3 opposing corners of this. I mean, it was like as cliche as it could possibly get. And at this point, my stance with respect to the label was like, let them take whatever credit they want. It doesn't matter. Like people, they're so busy trying to save face in the sort of sinking ship that if they need to feel good about how this happened, then fine. I mean, it's like our video. It doesn't matter who takes credit. And so I just had to sort of smile as like that same guy's his big pull quote in that article was. OK Go represents the most successful internet campaign that Capitol has ever waged.
When you make videos now, sometimes they're sponsored, sometimes they're not. How do you choose sponsors, and what are your rules for what is allowed, and what are your sort of internal ethics for sponsorships?
Money. No. We're sort of. It's interesting. I feel like we sort of have to figure it out as it evolves. So far, it's very much based on whether it feels disgusting or not. If to the extent that we can convince people, and I truly believe this. I mean, that there's a really viable model for patronage. That people actually. That advertising is so everywhere, and we are all. So fluent in the language of marketing and of just like mass mediation all the time that transparency is a breath of fresh air that everybody wants, and that if you as a corporation can have the balls to be like, you go make something awesome and we'll pay for it and people will like us because of that. I mean, I really believe that is actually true, and that's sort of what people that's how record labels were supposed to have worked and did, in theory, that they were the banks, and we're listening to the record because we like the music, not because we like the bank, and it's just, insofar as we can make videos that it's exactly what we want to make, you don't get any creative say. I mean, we'll tell you what we're going to make in advance so that we're not winding up somehow undercutting your larger plan, but this is what we're going to make, and if you'll pay for it, we'll thank you for it, and then you're the people who paid for the video, and people, there's our fairy dust for you, and you know, some people say they like that idea and then later go like, so where's the shot of the car? And other people say they like that idea and then their bosses don't. But it does occasionally work. You know, I mean, we've looked for sponsorships on all the videos we've made on this record. Well, I guess we are about to release our sixth video for this record, and two of them have had sort of major sponsorships. One of them we're still on Capitol for, and the others just weren't. I think we didn't look for sponsors for one. We did the most recent video that have people seen the dogs video that we put out last week or the week before? Thank you. That we looked for sponsors for a very long time, and in fact, it was a very expensive video to make. So we thought we tried to get a sponsor in advance of making it, and then eventually just decided it was worth it. We'd rather have it made and have to make the money back afterwards than the other way around. So.
Well, you mentioned, by the way, the technological innovation that I think a lot of people didn't know, including myself, until you told me backstage about the dog video.
Oh, we shot it in 3D. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, the dog video was shot in 3D, which we have not yet released. YouTube does have a really incredible 3D player where you can actually pick what. It's pretty amazing. A guy at YouTube in his off time coded a 3D player and then like came into work and was like, "Oh guys, look, I made this," and you can pick what type of 3D you wanted. You can do like red cyan anaglyph or magenta green anaglyph or any of the like. It's sort of mind-boggling how awesome it is. We have not yet put it out. I think we will unless we find a sponsor soon. The politics we deal with now, I mean, the sort of crazy horse trading record label style bullshit that we have to deal with all the time now is how to release and promote these things such that they don't wind up cannibalizing themselves. I mean, that if The Guardian in the UK or Spin or Rolling Stone or anybody wants to, like, if you want them to give it serious coverage, then they want something exclusive. Or everybody wants to do like, let's do the release, let's do the premiere here, and you're like, well, we're going to have an embed code, and you can have the embed code first, and we won't give it to anyone else for 3 hours, but they can take it directly off of your site, you know, and people just really don't understand that the model of scarcity doesn't work on the internet, and so like everybody wants us to drive traffic to their sites or wants an exclusive on thing. And I understand why that works from a sort of numbers perspective, but it doesn't work for cultural distribution. You know, you can't be like, I saw the most amazing thing. You just need like these 6 codes to get to it, and I mean, like everything has to be publicly available all the time. And people all want a piece of that, but then they want that piece of that to only fit into their site or into their corporation or into their whatever. So
that's the gatekeeper problem, right? You know, like The Guardian wants to be a gatekeeper in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and want to do the same sort of promotional stuff that that they always have, or that they have for as long as I've known anything about the music business, which is sort of like a lot of, it's not exactly paying. You know, it's not exactly tit for tat, but you know, if you do a ton of advertising in our magazine, we might consider covering your band. You know, and now it's more like, well, if you know, why don't you give us a whole bunch of exclusive material for our website, and then we'll premiere you on our website. And luckily, we are in a position now where we have enough. There's enough inertia behind these things that we don't need to sort of like bribe our way into people's websites anymore, or, you know, we were big enough by the time that system came about that we don't have to sort of like claw at the door, but it's not a very pretty system. There was something I was getting to, but I forget what it is.
Are there musicians or thinkers who you rely on to help you navigate your way through this? You know, it's just such terra incognita.
We have a team of people we work with who are us now. You know, I mean, there's a gentleman named Mike Rosenthal who essentially is our record label. I mean, we hired him to be an online consultant 6 months ago, and have now employed him to be the sole person that is our record label.
Because you are now you are post label.
Yeah, we left the label. We were very lucky that the label actually was just didn't want to put up that big of a fight. Like once things got sort of publicly not so nice between us and the record label, they let us go with our album and the rights to our videos, which they didn't need to do. I mean, they could really have fucked with us. And traditionally, big labels have really taken like the equivalent of a pot shot, which is sort of like a giant pan to the face on bands on the way out the door. But they
could have only posted them on stupid video.
Exactly. Well, now they're taking them off. The treadmill video, for instance, what was like, if you look at the graph of viewership, it looks like this until the date that they disabled embeddability, and then it looks like that. And then so it got, it was like cruising up to 52 million, where it stopped pretty much exactly flat 2 years ago when they stopped embeddability, and now they're taking it down because they want to put it on Vivo.
Right. And this is, in case you don't know, do you want to just explain the backstory really quickly? Do we have time?
Oh, yeah, the backstory of my fight with them, and which backstory?
You know what, I don't think we have time for the backstory, but everybody here follows this kind of thing, right? Yeah, basically, the label wouldn't let you guys circulate the video. They wouldn't let you embed it.
They wouldn't. They just, as a matter of course, turned off the embedding feature on all of EMI's videos. Because they thought that would make them more money, and it's not. I mean, they weren't trying to fuck their artists. Obviously, they just don't. It went from being videos are free advertisements, and wow, that's awesome, to videos are products that we're making. We've got to sell them, and if there's more money to be made off of the clicks on YouTube's site because of associated advertising, then we certainly don't want it to be on, someone else's blog where we're not getting the same per click payment. So I mean, it really is that they just the model of music or cultural production as a discrete commodity that you can restrict access to is it's just the only way to think about it. They're like, the fashion industry will never suffer for being online because you have to wear pants. You actually need to go get pants. But music, you don't have to have the CD. It doesn't have to have those boundaries. And as soon as they have been eroded, no one's going to put them up on purpose. They just don't. The videos don't. As soon as they realize I've got a thing that people want, so I have to restrict access to it, so people want access to it, so they'll pay for access to it. Yes, money. Mm-hmm. But people just don't do that.
How hardcore are we being about time? Can I ask a couple more questions, or? Okay, good. What did growing up in Washington, D.C. have? I want to ask about
deleterious effects.
Yes. Did it make policy seem a little bit less scary to you? Did it make it seem like growing up in a very? I'm curious about the evolution of your activism. Was music and politics always something that went together?
Yeah. Sadly, thanks, Jenny. No, I mean, DC, are there a lot of people here who are from DC, for a long time? Okay, so you guys all know. I mean, I left DC for college in 1994, and so the years between getting Run DMC's King of Rock in '86 and '94, that's my musical, oh my God, period. And that's, DC was in a really, really, really great way then, and a very inclusive and extremely overtly ideologically open way. Largely because of Ms. Toomey and Mr. Mackay, there was all shows had to be $5, and all shows had to be all ages, and everything was cultural and political and musical, and I didn't really recognize the distinction between those things. It was sort of, as I imagine, hippiedom was in the '60s. It's you couldn't distinguish whether or not you just wanted to go see that foxy girl, or you wanted to change the world, because hey, it's all the same. Yay, life! And that's sort of what it felt like to be going to rock shows here. I mean, I remember Nation of Ulysses playing to 6 people in every cafeteria of every high school. It's just if there's a cafeteria I can play in, why not? But also these, but everybody would, there were political causes and sort of political and sort of social change groups associated with almost everybody's everything. So I mean, to the point of sort of silliness, and when I excuse me, when I went off to school and then moved to Chicago, I was in Chicago. I was in a very tight-knit musical scene. I mean, everybody I knew was in a band. Everybody's roommate was in a band. Everybody was in 15 bands. If you played a show, there'd be 200 people there, and every single one of them was in another band. And it was just sort of like this rotating who gets to be on stage thing. But none of it had anything other than music and the sort of like the sort of internal mechanics of any scene, I would imagine, where like, you know, these people are trying to, you know, they're contrary to what they're doing and they're contrary to what everyone's doing, and they're, you know, like, and everybody sort of establishes themselves within this musical constellation. But there were no other things. There were no, you know, there was no. It
was a community, not bumping up against corporate.
Yeah, I mean, it closed off there. Nobody was trying to, like, you know, it was sort of like everybody was making things for everybody else in that community, and there was no relationship to the outside world. And then, you know, our band started doing well. Our version of contrarianism was like, I really wasn't that into like let's do some more retro garage rock, and I was listening to a lot of Joan Jett and Cheap Trick, and I was like, we're gonna make Roy Thomas Baker records, so fuck y'all, you know, and that wound up being something that's really commercial, and we got a major label record deal, and suddenly we were touring around the country. And people, and then there were the elections, you know, and then Bush is getting elected again, or you know, first time, and but especially again, and we'd be on these like, you know, a 3-week tour with a band, and everybody'd be sort of bitching about whatever after the show. And then you'd watch like a fan come up and ask a question, or you'd watch them, like, you know, in a public interview or something, be asked a question, and people just like shut off. I think 2 reasons. One, people really don't want to look stupid, and nobody knows everything, and so people are like, well, I'm not a politician, so I can't talk about policy. And 2, they were scared that people might disagree with them, and that would lose them fans, or that would you know, sully their relationship to any of the sort of corporate overlords, whether that was their label or someone at MTV or at the radio station where they were having the interview, and so you wind up with this situation where people whose feelings we are, you know, supposedly all invested in hearing about, like, emotionally. I mean, we all want to be touched by their music, but supposedly we don't want to know anything that's going on in their head, and there was a real resistance to people like meaning anything or taking, like, having a stance on anything, or at least that's what it felt like to me. I'm sure in contrast to coming from DC, where like everybody was loud and outspoken about everything. So FMC and air traffic control had these amazing meetings between managers, musicians, and various other sort of music world luminaries in you know, before the 2004 election, trying to see if they could leverage the incredible sort of power of music as a social collective force to get people to get involved. I mean, I remember, was it Kristen who was giving that speech in 2004 that showing exactly how churches work as an organizational structure on the right, and how 85% of people, of born-again Christians, vote. Like, and so think about how disproportionately well represented they are, and to people who go to rock shows. You know, like we play, at the time it was a few hundred people a night. Now it's usually a few thousand people a night. But like, we have a congregation every night who are motivated and like give a shit and really care what we think. And most people don't want to say anything to them. You know, and our fans vote maybe 50%. You know, but it's certainly ain't 85%. So they kind of got me mad, and then I mean, they're really good at puppeting musicians, these fuckers, and then the success of our videos was such that when you wind up in policy fights about how the internet should work, and you have somebody who made a $5 video that got a Grammy, it's a really easy thing to poke the assholes with.
We are winding down, but I wanted to ask you, speaking of puppeting, getting signed to a major label used to mean something symbolically. Even if you were getting screwed over in the long run,
I think it
was
still does,
something,
but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be something that you aspired to, but you left your major label deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you guys have been talking about this all week, but the one thing that's really missing, I mean, we don't need major labels for distribution, we don't need major labels for promotion, we may need engines for those things, but they certainly don't need to be centralized in one body, and they certainly don't need to be the same people who fucked it up the first time. But what you do need is an investment structure. I mean, we're in the best of times, major labels succeeded on about 5% of the things they signed. So, like, you need somebody who's willing to spend, who's willing to make, make a 95% gain on 5% of the things they invest in, unless you really want every musician out there to have to be independently wealthy or an MBA, and that makes for really shitty music. So, you definitely want, I mean, the sustainable structure we will need at some point is going to need some sort of body of investment because not everything's going to succeed, and you need, and if like we got a sort of kickstart from a label and had to sort of play by a system we didn't particularly like for the better part of a decade, but now we're not in danger of finding investment for our next project, whether or not it's externally or even knowing that we have enough sort of like turnover that we can actually pay for our own videos at this point. But that would not have been the case in 2001 when we got signed or something. And if I had to pay for, I mean, four guys touring for 18 months that's a lot of really cheap, shitty gas station food, not to mention, healthcare. So you do need, there's got to be someone who thinks they can make money off of music, and somebody who's willing to invest in more than just their own band.
Have you ever thought of adding a revenue stream of outtakes from your videos?
We use those to bribe people with. Our most recent video, the White Knuckles dog video, I think we did 10 different B-roll clips. We shot hundreds of hours because it took so long to make, and we had like several set cameras and a couple people walking around the entire time, so we have hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage. And a very close friend of mine just made like these really wonderful little pieces out of it. But everybody, it's like, oh, we would love to have you on a radio station. What do you think we could do for the website that would work out well? And I mean, it's a good thing we can't actually walk into radio stations with bags of cocaine and Super Bowl tickets anymore. But you still, I mean, there are no musicians in the world who actually want to play the Christmas fest at such and such. There's no one who's like, oh my God, it's gonna be so great. It's us and Stained and 6 other new metal bands from 1998. Like, it's not. That's how you get on their radio station.
There's this kind of classic NPR question, which is there anything I haven't asked you?
There's many things you haven't asked me.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to share with this particular audience?
We didn't do the child porn joke, but I don't think this is the time.
We just got the sign saying, basically, stop.
Oh my God, you have a 10. Can I show that to people? That's just really cool. 10 minutes.
10 minutes means we've got time for audience questions. And we have a mic, and we have a question right behind you.
What'd you spend the $5 on?
I lied when I said we made a video for $5 that we got a Grammy with. We've made a video for $5 that we won a lot of awards for, and that was the backyard video, and it was the tape. It was back before SD cards. No, it's okay. That video was. I mean, I suppose if you include the like 3 or 4 Starbucks runs, it was probably more like $40. The treadmill video, all in. I mean, we didn't have a budget for it, but it cost about $5,000 in the end. Yeah, you guys probably like numbers. The Rube Goldberg machine cost $160,000 that we got paid for by State Farm. It took us 6 months. The WTF video cost about $14,000. We paid for that ourselves. The N-Love video cost about $70,000 or $80,000, which we paid for ourselves. We have a new video coming out next month that Samsung is paying for. The Dogs video cost $300,000, which we paid for ourselves. But that's a month of 12 professional dog trainers, and you can't exactly you can't be like, no, just do it for free, because then a movie comes along and you can't replace your trainer with a different one because the dog won't pay attention to them. Let's see, what other videos have been made recently? The Notre Dame marching band video costs about $50,000 or $60,000, and I think we got some of that funded by the label and some of it we paid for ourselves. Hi, Rachel. Rachel has been to about 450 OK Go shows.
Not that many. But actually, along those lines, there's been a lot of talk this weekend about direct-to-fan projects. And, obviously being a fan, I know some of the things that you guys have tried to implement in terms of the merch that you're selling, where you're putting out things from the This Too Shall Pass video and things like that. And I'm wondering just how successful those have been for you. Just because, obviously, since I've been to 450 shows, I'm a big fan. And I have a limited amount of income, as much as I would love to spend it all on you.
But I want more of it.
Let me get my wallet.
No, we have been very successful at selling things from our videos, and almost everything we have tried that is sort of around the weird edges of normalcy in music marketing or selling has worked in their small way. The thing is that, like for instance, that we have the video for This Too Shall Pass. I think the one you're talking about, the marching band one.
Oh, well, the marching band one and the Rube Goldberg.
Well, for the marching band one, there were 130 marching band outfits, and then we sold them online. And we sold all of them, I think, at do you remember what the price was? $90, $100?
I think it was about 100.
Do you own one?
No, actually, I don't. One of our friends does, and there's a picture of me wearing it.
I still have one. What's that? Is mine for sale? What are you offering? The thing is that that's not all that much money in the end, and for the amount of work it takes for us to set up all of these tiny projects and then make a small profit margin on them, none of them are our real bread and butter yet. But the idea is we're sort of trying to figure out, establish for ourselves a system whereby we're not dependent on other people for things, period. But selling the things from our videos has more to do actually with connecting with our fans than it does with getting their money. There's just not enough things in our video for the volume to make sense. And the merchandise we sell at shows certainly pays for the person who is selling it, and occasionally we make a little bit more off of that. But you hear a lot that bands make all their money touring and on merch, and that's not my band. I'm glad that I'm assuming there are people who merchandise better than we do and make lots of money off of it. We don't. We make some, but not tons. Yes, sir, in the back. Just yell.
Yeah. Two questions, if I may. You mentioned sponsors for your videos.
Mm-hmm.
Numerous hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm wondering, what is the benefit that accrues to sponsors for the videos? I'm also wondering, your videos are on YouTube and so forth. Do you generate any revenue from YouTube or any other video sites for the presence of your videos?
We do generate video revenue off of YouTube. We usually wait a while until we allow for ads to be posted on them, just sort of because I don't know, maybe we're old school principle-wise, but so for a few days when we should be getting all the money, we don't, and then later we put the ads on and don't make much money, so we're kind of dumb. But again, that money isn't huge money. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but it's not like, we're not going to put any kids through college on it. But when you add, there's just a lot of little sources, a little bit from merchandise, a little bit from touring, a little bit from YouTube, and a little bit from licensing, a little bit from all sorts of stuff. In terms of the sponsorships, we are in a particularly good position to do sponsorships because we have had many multiple million hit videos, and we can tell people pretty clear. Like we can assure people like this video will get 5 million hits in so many days and not be wrong about it. That's what marketers. I know we're supposed to keep this short. Most people for a long time thought that the internet was, just for nerds and scientists. Then they thought it was for e-commerce and marketing, and a lot of people still think that. But obviously, I mean, everybody in this room, I presume, knows that the internet is where we all live, and the distinction between digital space and physical space is a sort of silly one to make when it comes to art or to finance or to the way to communication and the way we run our lives. So the thing is that the mechanics of it are completely different than traditional marketing was, and so what marketers really need you to do is walk in and explain to them how the internet works, and the internet can work however you want it to in that discussion as long as you're pretty good at bullshitting, and but the truth is there's a few very basic things, like that we're not here to just make you a cheap commercial, but people will watch this video, people will care how it got made, people will read the metadata, people will want to will watch the B-roll and want to know how this all happened, and so if you can assure somebody that their logo will be seen 3 million times, they'll give you some money. We try to stay away from product placement. We're not wholly against it, depending on whether or not it's something that feels disgusting. For instance, the video we're about to put out that Samsung is paying for, we would not allow them any access to the video whatsoever. But we did shoot the video on one of their cameras and agreed, per contract, to make 4 or 5 small snippet videos explaining how we had made it with their camera. So they're not really commercials, but you do see us holding their camera, and you get the sense that this was a project they were involved in.
In the beginning, with the treadmill video, it was a really cool idea that didn't cost much, and it was very fun to watch. I wonder how you feel the pressure to continue to make cool videos, and obviously the money that you're spending on these more elaborate videos. Do you ever envision a day where you'll do another $2,000 or $200 video, and how do you sort of balance the pressure of doing something that's going to live up to your reputation and the cash associated with that?
We've released a lot of videos recently, and we've always been a band that people talk about in terms of our videos. But this will sound really pat, but it really is true. I've known the bassist in my band since I was 12 years old, and we've been making stuff together for 23 years now, and we are what we really like doing is making stuff that makes us excited, and there's an extra thrill to being able to do it again, and to get to know that next time we have even more creative freedom and even more resources with which to work, and the videos have been an incredible source for that theme of creativity in our lives, but it's not specific necessarily just to videos, nor is it specific just to making records or just to putting on shows or just to writing things in newspapers. It's just sort of like to be able to chase the creative muse and not have someone in the way saying, yeah, but that's not going to work at commercial radio. That's really the goal for us. And there's plenty of great ideas that only cost $5,000, and there's plenty of great ideas that cost $5 million. And I think the pressure we feel is not at all external, like we have to top ourselves with each thing. You can sort of see that if we're just going to contain it to videos. This album, we've put out 2 videos that we sort of knew would be really big, and several that are less big. But we loved making just as much, and we knew our sort of core base of fans and people who pay attention to music videos would love, just not little old ladies in their knitting circles, which is a big segment of the people who watch the treadmill video and watch the dogs video are people who never buy a rock record, probably don't even know we're a band, certainly would never come to one of our shows. It's like a whole different universe. But I'm trying to answer your question. It's not like we're not trying to. It's not like this one-upsmanship with ourselves. Like, okay, we got to get more people and spend more money and do more. It's just the more creative opportunities that are open to us, the less we have to care about this fitting into some preordained model. Do
we have time for one final question? One more.
Which comes first, the video or the song?
The song.
And with that, thank you so much, Damian. This was such a pleasure.
Thanks.